Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody can hear my voice and see the presentation on the screen. Excellent. I hope everybody had a safe weekend, right? We had Holi, Dhuleti, and rather subdued celebrations. But despite that, my social media was full of posts of people enjoying with colors, maybe at private locations, maybe at their own home. So I hope everybody just had a safe weekend and did not do anything in excess, right? Chalo. So we are nearing the final stretch of our theoretical preparations for entrance exams, right? Major topics we have seen, we have practiced different things. So starting today, in the month of April, we're going to revise a lot of topics, right? According to schedule, today we are doing verbal reasoning. So we are taking a look at the topics of verbal reasoning, a basic theory, then a few examples, and then maybe at the end of the session, I will send a practice exercise which you guys can attempt, right? Regarding full length mock papers, a lot of them are already assigned online. I hope you are giving them, right, the full length tests. So having said that, I think it's time we start preparing, right? So shall we start then? Chalo. So verbal reasoning, in which the exams are getting delayed. Will IQ continue? No. We are taking we are going on till I think mid-April when we will finish the syllabus, and then of course you can always ask doubts, and online material will be there for tests and other things. But there's no point in keeping on the classes on and on, right? Of course, we'll be available for doubt solving, and a lot of practice tests and other things will be available to you. But you also need to preparing for boards, and if they unnecessarily keep getting delayed, then there's no point. Any chance of opening physical classes? Absolutely not. No, right? Let me be very clear, we are not opening physical classes. So whatever is happening, we are doing everything online, right? With the number of incidents going up across the country, there is no way we are opening classes now. So let's start with verbal reasoning. The first topic of verbal reasoning that we are going to take a quick look at is statements and assumptions. One-on-one doubt sessions, Vanshika, I think we are already doing that through through WhatsApp and Telegram, right? So Gautam, I'll be sending at the end of the class. We'll take a look at a theory, we'll do the examples together, and I'll be sending the PDF at the end of the class for your practice. Right? Sure. So starting with Shashwat is asking, will IPM classes be conducted? Well, that is up to Chandan sir. I believe he has completed the syllabus, or at least a major portion. It is up to him. So he will be informing you what is the thing for IPM. Chalo, let's start with what is scheduled for today, that is statements and assumptions. So an assumption, we have already done this example, and because it's a revision of the theory, so to explain what an assumption is, this is my favorite example. If I give you two statements, the first statement saying I'm in Ahmedabad, and the second statement that says that Ahmedabad is not Baroda, and if I ask you to use these two statements to conclude, the most common conclusion which is usually given to me by students is that I am not in Baroda, right? Given the first statement that I am in Ahmedabad and Ahmedabad is not Baroda, that is Ahmedabad is different from Baroda, the most common conclusion I get is I am not in Baroda. But are the two given statements enough to tell me that I am not in Baroda, or do I need some other fact? Right? If I know, Gautam. That's why it's called a revision. Revision means doing it again. So if I'm in Baroda and Ahmedabad is not Baroda, then for me to not be in Baroda, there's a very simple assumption that needs to be taken, right? You have to assume that a person cannot be at two places at the same time. So if a person cannot be at two places at the same time is assumed, then and only then you can see that if I'm in Ahmedabad, then I'm not in Baroda. But if you cannot assume that, if it is possible to be at two places at the same time, then obviously you cannot say that I'm not in Baroda. It is possible I'm in two places at the same time. So when you're saying I'm not in Baroda, you are definitely assuming that I cannot be at two places at the same time. So an assumption is a fact which is not given to you. It is sometimes so obvious that we don't have to say it, right? A fact which is so obvious that sometimes we don't have to say it. But nevertheless, the fact has to be true for the statement to be true. Like when you say to your friend, when you meet a friend and when you leave the meeting, you tell your friend, "Ke chalo kal milte hain." So what are you assuming? You are assuming that you will be alive tomorrow, right? You won't say कि जिंदा रहे तो कल मिलेंगे. You will say कल मिलेंगे. But you have to assume that if you are going to remain alive tomorrow, because if you are not going to be alive tomorrow, then you cannot say that we will meet tomorrow, right? So certain things which are naturally taken, which are not said, but which have to be true for the other statement to be true, is known as an assumption. So in assumptions, there are some basic things which we need to take into consideration. For example, if the statement is in the form of a notice, right? Notice board pe some notice is given, then your basic assumption always remains that people will read the notice, right? If I assume that people will read the notice, only then I will put the notice on the notice board. If I don't assume that people will read it, then I may not put it on the notice board. कोई फायदा नहीं है. So whenever a notice is put up, your first natural assumption is that people will read it. Similarly, when an advertisement is put, the assumption is that whatever is described in the advertisement, the people want it. For example, if there is a car advertisement which says that this car is very fast, then obviously the person who is doing the advertisement is assuming that people want fast cars. If the advertiser is saying that this car gives a very good mileage, then that means the advertiser is assuming that people want mileage. Now, remember, the assumption is by the person who is making the statement. Whether it is actually true or not is irrelevant. But the person who is making the statement, that person is doing some assumptions. Similarly, if an advice is given by one person to another, then the person giving the advice assumes that the other party listens to his advice. And if a person is making a threat to another person, then automatically you assume that whatever you are using to threaten the other person is afraid of it. Like for a young child, if the mother threatens, behave else I will lock you up in the bathroom, the assumption is that the child is afraid of being locked up in the bathroom, right? Aapko, at your age, as teenagers, your mother will never threaten to lock you up in the bathroom. For you, that might be the best thing. For you, they might say, we will take away your social media account. We will take away your mobile phone, right? So what they threaten you with is what they assume you are afraid of. Whether you are actually afraid of not or not is a different matter. But assumption is the person who is making the statement, what that person thinks in his or her mind. So in advertisement, the assumption is that whatever is being advertised, the people want it. For example, if they say, drink this cola, it will make you cool in summer. So the advertiser is assuming that people want to become cool in summer. Or if the advertiser says that wear this cloth, it will keep you warm. So the advertiser is assuming that people want to be warm, right? So whatever claim is being made in the advertisement, the advertiser is assuming that the potential customers want it. Did you get these 4 basic types? Right. So in an assumption statement example, what you do is you look at the statement, you look at the assumption, and then you ask yourself the question: if the assumption is true, does that mean the statement is true? And if I take the assumption to be false, does that also mean the statement becomes false? Which means changing the assumption, if it affects the truth value of the given statement, then that assumption is a valid assumption, right? The statement is valid only because of the assumption. By changing the truth value of the assumption, if the validity of the statement also changes, then and only then the assumption has to be taken as a true assumption. So, in these examples, for example, you are given a statement followed by 3 assumptions. You have to consider the statement and the assumptions and decide which assumption is implicit. Implicit means which is hidden and which is understood. So, first one, the ex-passenger car manufacturing company announced a sharp reduction in the prices of its luxury cars, right? So, if the ex-passenger car manufacturing company says that our luxury cars, the price is suddenly decreased, what are you assuming while the statement is being made? What needs to be assumed? Do I need to assume that there will be an increase in the sale of luxury cars of X? Do I need to assume that other such car manufacturers may also reduce their prices? Do I need to assume that the competitor companies may not reduce their prices? Now, is it necessary that only if you assume that there is an increase in the sale of luxury cars, then they will announce a sharp reduction? Is expecting an increase in the sale of luxury cars the only reason why you are announcing this? So, even if you don't assume an increase in the sale of luxury cars, is it possible that you reduce your price? Can the company reduce its price even if they do not see an increase in the sale? Possible, right? Even if they don't see an increase in the sale, there can be other reasons for reducing the price. So A is not necessarily my assumption. That I don't need to assume that there may be an increase in the price. Even without this assumption, my statement will work. Now, whether others may reduce their price or not reduce their price, I don't need to make any of these assumptions, right? So, none of these. See, in assumptions number, do you actually need, there may be an increase in the sale of luxury cars? Do you need to assume that? Even if I don't assume it, I'm not saying conclusion. See, the may wala funda will work well in a conclusion, right? But even if you say that they will not increase the sale, it will not increase the sale of luxury cars, it will even without that assumption it works, right? Even without that assumption it works. Now, none is implicit means all 3 are wrong. None of these means there is some option which is not given here. There is some option which is not given here. And take a look at it. Take a look at B and C. May reduce, may not reduce. What does that suggest? May reduce, may not reduce. Can both of them be at the same time? No. These are either or options. Either they will reduce or they will not reduce. You cannot be assuming both of them together at the same time. Does that make sense? That means actually the answer should be either 2 or 3, but that is not given as an answer. So I will say none of these. I have an option which is not among A, B, C, D, and hence E has to be taken. Option C, none is implicit, means 1, 2, 3, all of them are wrong. None of these means there is an answer, but it is not given as an option. Did you get that? Now Soham, given goods and all that, don't think so much in these terms. Don't think so much, right? You don't have to give an explanation. You only have to consider, is it possible that there is an explanation? Nobody is asking what can be the alternate explanation. If you just think it's possible, there's an explanation, that's it. Right? You don't have, so see, if you think too deeply, you might end up wasting a lot of time in the exam. Right? So purposely they might ask you good such questions where your concepts that you learnt in school are tested. But the honest truth is, you don't need to think too much. You just need to think, is there a possibility of another explanation? The moment you think, yes, another explanation is possible, you say this is not an assumption. True? Chal. Next one. Buy pure and natural honey of company X. An advertisement in a newspaper. Buy pure and natural honey of company X. An advertisement in a newspaper. Now, if they are saying that our honey is pure and natural, why are they emphasizing that our is natural? It means artificial honey can be prepared. If artificial honey could not be prepared, will the company be projecting their own product as natural? And if impurities were also available in some other honey, that's why they are saying we are pure, right? If it was impossible to make artificial honey, then there is no need to project your honey as pure, because all the honey are pure, right? Customer will ask, kaun si nayi cheez hai? What is new? So when you are saying our honey is natural, it does mean you are assuming that others may be having artificial. So one, yes. Now, people do not mind paying more for pure and natural honey. Does the ad talk about price at all? Does the ad talk about price at all? Then how do you assume that people don't mind paying more? Right? They are not talking about price at all. So there is no question of the second assumption. We do not know how much they are willing to pay. And no other company supplies pure honey. We are not saying we are the only suppliers. There is no talk about others. So 1, yes. 2 and 3, no. Therefore, A has to be my answer. A has to be my answer. Did everybody get this? Now, why not 3? Why do you assume that no other company supplies pure honey? The advertiser says, buy pure and natural honey of company X. Right? Does it say buy pure and natural honey only from company X? Only company X sells? Does it say anything like that? When Maruti says buy car from Maruti, does it mean no other company sells a car? Shashwat, if no one supplies and you have a monopoly, you don't need to waste money on advertisement. If nobody, Shashwat, understand, if there is no other supplier of pure honey, these guys won't waste money. They have a monopoly. झक मार के लोगों को उनका ही खरीदना पड़ेगा. When do you advertise? When there are other competitors, right? If there are other people in the market, then you have advertise. If there is no other competitor in the market, you will not even advertise, because there is no option for people. They have to buy from you. So third cannot be my answer. Do you get that, Shashwat? It's the other way around, right? Okay. So A definitely my answer. Only the first one is an assumption. Chalo. Unable to manage with the present salary, Arun has decided to join another company. So the reason why he is joining another company is the salary. Fine. First assumption, the new company has better work environment. Well, it definitely has better salary. But what about the environment? I don't know. So 1 cannot be my answer. The present company offers inadequate pay package. Obviously, that's why he cannot manage with the salary. So second is definitely true. And the new company offers higher salary to all its employees. Well, it has offered a higher salary to Arun, but does it offer higher salary to all the employees? I don't know. So only the second one is implicit, and hence B has to be my answer. In this case, only the second one is implicit, and therefore B has to be my answer. Kahini, Soham, did we get it? I hope everybody understood this, right? Think simple. We are not looking at conclusions, we are looking at assumptions. Assumptions and conclusions, sometimes they look similar, right? Even in the exam, they generally don't distinguish much between assumptions and conclusions. So we'll go with it. Right, Shashwat? This can work both as an assumption and as a conclusion. In exams, many paper setters, they don't look at the difference. Right? Technically, it can be both. Right? Soham. So we know that Arun has got a higher salary. Soham, we know that Arun has got a higher salary. But whether all the employees get a higher salary or only this person got a higher salary, we don't need to assume that everybody gets a higher salary. We only know that this person is getting a higher salary, right, Soham? Shubhankar, like I said, let's not distinguish much between conclusion, inferences, assumptions and things like that. The words are interchangeably used, although there is a clear difference. But in exam, they won't go into such nitty-gritties. Right? Chalo. Moving on. The Employees Association has appealed to the managers of company Z to introduce written examinations for clerical cadre recruitment to prevent selection of incompetent persons. Right? So, if they have appealed to introduce written examination, that means, can I say so far the companies that used to select candidates without a written examination? Definitely, right? If they are going to introduce something, that means it is going to start now. That means definitely till now it was not working. So 1 is definitely implicit. Now, if a written examination can help to identify competent persons, then I will say that I will use it to prevent incompetency. If a written examination cannot help identifying competent persons, then it will not be introduced. So 2 is also definitely true. And at higher level, written exam may not be of much use, is irrelevant, right? In fact, I need this. So what is at higher level? I don't need to know. So 1 and 2, both of them are definitely true. This one was simple. I think most of us got it. 1 and 2, definitely implicit in this one, not the others. Did we get it? Is everybody with me together on this? Good. Sure. Now, to improve the employment situation in India, there is a need to recast present educational system towards implementation of scientific discoveries in daily life. Right? To improve the employment situation, there's a need to recast present education system towards implementation of scientific discoveries in daily life. First assumption, the students after completing such an education may be able to earn their livelihood. If such education helps them to earn their livelihood, then can we say we need to improve it and recast it? Yes. If such education is going to help them earn a livelihood, then by recasting it, it does improve the employment. That means first assumption is definitely implicit. First assumption is definitely implicit. Now, if students may consider the new system as meaningful, then and only then I will actually make such a change. If the students don't consider the new system as meaningful, then there is no point in changing it, because whatever needs to be done from the viewpoint of students, right? If the students find it useful, meaningful, only then it makes sense to make such a change. If students don't consider it as meaningful, then there is no point in making the change, which means second assumption is also true. Now, the state may earn more revenue as more and more people will engage themselves in self-employment. Well, the statement talks about employment, but whether self-employment will improve, whether because of the state will get a revenue, all that is irrelevant. which means only the first and the second are actually implicit, making B as my answer. Did you get this one? Yes. So did you get a hang of assumptions? Did you get a hang of assumptions? A lot of you have already done this before. So for those who are doing it fresh, there is an entire book of verbal reasoning where you have assumptions exercise, right? Do practice those examples and you will get a hang of assumptions. They are among the easy ones in verbal reasoning, right? So this was just a quick revision of the concepts of assumptions, right? We move on to the second one, that is statements and arguments. Okay, Kahini, you want to know the difference between none is implicit and none of these. Okay, now let us say there are three answers: assumption 1, assumption 2, assumption 3. Your actual answer is 1 and 2, right? A is given 1, B is given 2, C is given 3, D is given none of these, and E is given none is implicit. Now, the actual answer is assumptions 1 and 2 are implicit, but that is not an option. So, none of these will be marked. And if all the three assumptions are wrong, then none is implicit is marked. Do you get that, Kaini? Okay. Now, what is a premise and how is it different from an assumption? See, whatever is given as the statement of fact is a premise, right? For example, if you remember the very first example which we did, right? These stated, I am in Ahmedabad. This is a premise. What is given to you is a premise. And what is not given but it is understood, it is hidden, is an assumption. Do you get that? Right. Now, the difference between an assumption and an inference. The difference between an assumption and an inference. Now, the basic funda is this. From an assumption, the statement becomes valid. From the statement, you can either make a conclusion or an inference. The assumption leads to the statement. The statements lead to conclusions or inferences. We get that, Shubhankar? Right. Yes, Shrikar. All the best for that. I got an interview tomorrow. All the best. Chalo. Shall we move ahead with statements and assumptions then? Statements and arguments then? Okay. So, many of us think that an argument is negative. Saying against somebody is argument. But actually, an argument is only a reason or set of reasons given to support an idea, action or theory. So if you are speaking for, you are arguing. If you are speaking against, even that is an argument. So whether you are speaking for an idea or you are speaking against an idea, the funda remains that your arguments are logical statements to support your viewpoint. If you want to go for it, whatever logic you give, that is your argument for. And if you want to go against it, then whatever logic you give against it is your logic against, is your argument against. So an argument is simply reasoned statements given to support whether for or against whatever is the question. So a strong argument does not mean that the opposite argument is weak. In support also you can give a strong argument, against something also you can give a strong argument. So don't think that if the yes argument is strong, then the no should be weak. You can answer a question both in yes and no and give strong arguments, right? So take each argument separately, don't assume anything. And so the point is, whenever you get statements and argument type questions, you have to read the question very carefully. But after reading the question, don't form your opinion. For example, they might ask, should religious festivals be banned in India? Now, don't answer the question on your own, right? Some of you might say yes, they should be. Some of you might think no, they should not be. But your opinion does not matter. So don't form an opinion. Rather, read whatever is presented as the arguments, and based on the merit of the arguments, decide whether they are strong or weak. If without reading the given arguments, you yourself try to answer it, you might end up having a bias for or against. So don't form your opinion in a statement and argument question. Only take a look at the arguments given to you in the question, and based on their merits, decide whether they are strong or weak. So, a valid argument, a strong argument, will always be based on either a scientific fact or a logical fact, or it will be a universally accepted truth, right? For example, there is no scientific fact that you should respect elders, but it is universally accepted that one should respect elders. So, whenever you hear an argument, identify, is it backed by solid evidence? Either some scientific fact must be given as evidence, or some logical reason must be given as evidence, or it must be a fact which is universally accepted as true. If emotions are being used to argue, it is weak. Without logic, if they are only trying to use emotions to convince, then that argument is weak. In the argument, if without using logic, they are simply asking a question again, like why not? Of course, why not? That is not an argument, because there is no explanation in it. And comparison without logic is always weak. Should India have compulsory military service for 18-year-olds? Strong first argument, yes, because countries like US and Israel have such a policy. Such an argument is called a weak argument, right? It's like when we ask our mother for something and argue that my padosi has this, I should also have it. The first counter we get it, wo kuएं में कूदेगा तो तू भी कुएं में कूदेगा, right? So just because somebody else does it is not a strong argument that we should do it, right? So comparison is never a good argument for anything. So let's take a look at a few examples. First one, should adult education programs be given priority over compulsory education program? Take a look at the two arguments. First one says, no, it should not be. Why? It will also help in the success of compulsory education program. Think about it. If adult education program helps in the success of compulsory education program, then that is actually a good reason to say yes to it, right? Kavya, if adult education program is given priority and it helps in the success of compulsory education program, then shouldn't I say that yes, it should be given priority? This argument works for yes, it does not work for no. The argument works for yes, it does not work for no. So first one is not my answer. Second, should adult education programs be given priority over compulsory education program? Yes, it will help to eliminate adult illiteracy. Well, if adult education program helps in eliminating adult literacy, then that's a good thing and it's desirable. So it definitely is a good argument, and hence B, only the second argument is strong, and hence that should be marked as my answer. Did you get it? B, that is only the second one, should be marked as my answer. The first one, the argument is strong, but it does not support the given answer. If it was yes, then the argument would have been strong. But the argument is good, but the answer itself is inverted. So, not a strong argument. Second one makes a lot of sense. Chalo. Moving ahead, next one. Should new universities be established in India? Should new universities be established in India? First, we still have not achieved the target for literacy. We still have not achieved the target for literacy. Well, universities aren't responsible for literacy. And just because the target for literacy is not achieved is not a reason to stop higher education. Right? You don't stop higher education so that everybody gets primary education. So, first one, definitely not a good argument. Second, we will have to face the problem of unemployed but highly qualified people. Again, universities are not places for employment. Although the way students ask about colleges, the first question I get from students and parents is, sir, placement kaisa hai? Sir, pay package kitna milega? But the point is, universities are not placement agencies, right? Employment is not their problem. So again, saying that they should not be established because of unemployment is not a good enough reason. So neither one of them is actually strong. Neither one of them is actually strong. Right, most of you got it. Very good. Dvija, did you understand this one? Correct. Chalo. Should non-vegetarian food be totally banned in our country? Yes, it should be banned. Why? It is expensive and therefore beyond the means of most people. Well, if most people cannot afford it, does it mean that it should be banned totally? Most people cannot afford diamonds. Does that mean diamonds are banned? Most people can't afford a Maserati or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. They are not banned. Just because most people can't afford it, you don't ban something. So first argument does not make sense. Second one, nothing should be banned in a democratic country like ours. If it is a democracy, does it mean nothing is banned? In India, do we ban nothing because we are democratic? No, we don't ban nothing, right? Certain things definitely can be banned. In fact, we are living in times where a lot of things have been banned right now. That does not mean we are not a democratic country. So neither one of them is actually a strong argument, making D my answer. Right? Yes, Dhanvi. Shaurya, correct. Democracy does not mean nothing is banned. Democracy means freedom of speech and expression, but when required, bans do take place. Chalo. Should a total ban be put on trapping wild animals? Should a total ban be put on trapping wild animals? Yes, there should be a ban because trappers are making a lot of money. Just because somebody is making money, how does that make that a good reason for a ban? Does not make any sense. First one, out. Second, should a total ban be put? No, bans on hunting and trapping are not effective. Well, even if they are not effective, but if they have to be banned, they have to be banned. Then you try to implement, you try to make them effective. But they're not effective does not mean you don't do it. Right now, there is a ban on liquor, and we know that alcohol ban is not very effective. But that is not a reason to remove the ban, right? So, that again cannot be my answer. Hence, again, neither one of them is strong. Neither one of them is strong. Next one. Should government close down loss-making public sector enterprises? Should government close down loss-making public sector enterprises? No, they should not. Why? All employees will lose their jobs, security and earning. And what would they do? Well, isn't that a good argument? Lot of government sectors are actually not for profitability, but they are for the good of the people, right? Especially when we hear of schemes like Manrega, right? Or compulsory employment or minimum employment schemes, right? Even if they are making losses, closing them down may not be a good option. So to save the job security and earning, is that a good reason to say that government should not close down loss-making public sector enterprises? Yes. In a competitive world, rule is survival of the fittest. Well, in private companies, survival of the fittest is the rule. But lot of government sector, public sector enterprises, they are not for survival of the fittest. Things like railways, things like defense, right? It's not about survival of the fittest. These are activities which can only be done by the government. Hence, second one cannot be a good reason for saying that they should be shut down. And hence A. Manush, if you're making a loss, you won't survive. Then Manush, you haven't seen public sector enterprises. Public sector enterprises often are loss making, right? But that does not mean that, for example, the railways, it's very rare ever to see a railway making, in India, the railways making profit. But railways have always been there, and railways are not going to shut down anytime soon. There are a lot of public enterprises which are continued even after making loss year after year, right? They talk about disinvestment and all that, but many a times it's not possible. They have to be run because there is no alternative, right? Ha Manush, Hardeep Singh Puri will give a statement 100% privatization or Air India will be closed down. But the point is, Air India has alternatives. There are private sectors for that. Do you think the railway minister can give a statement like that? Manush, can the railways... No, so Sonia. If only the last line, no, what would they do was given, then it's a rhetoric. But what would they do is actually preceded by the explanation. It first says they will lose their job security and earning, right? Hence, there is logic. What would, if it was given, no, what would they do? If no logic, only that question was given, then we will say it is not a good argument. But that question part is actually preceded by the logic, and hence it is valid. Do you get that? Yes. Chalo. Maitri. ठीक है. You see, Maitri, what you learn in school, you learn theoretical economics. See, school level is for understanding fundamental theories. But then when you step into college and go into the world, you understand there's a huge difference between theory and practice, right? For example, you would have learned that the basics of a business are things like people. You would have learned labor, machinery, all that is important. In school, nobody would have taught you that knowing people, Olkhan, is one of the prime requirements of a business. So they teach you theoretical concepts at school level. But now you have to think beyond that, because pure theory may not apply in the real world. Right? Right. Chal. So, arguments, I guess most of you are getting it. Again, examples given in the book. I hope you will practice that. So that was our quick revision for arguments as well. Now, quick revision, conclusions. Now, unlike assumptions and arguments, conclusions are not, there is no theory for this. The only thing that I need to keep in mind is that when something is given as a conclusion, it must include whatever premises or facts are there in the passage, or at least as many of the premises or facts in the passage, and it must give you a summary or a consequence of what is given, right? It must just follow from what is given. So just let's take a look at examples. Sometimes it will be very similar to concepts of syllogisms as well. So if the statements are, all the students in my class are bright and Manish is not bright, then the conclusion, even without the options, I think many of you can give, right? If all the students in my class are bright and Manish is not bright, then obviously Manish is not a student of my class. I think this one was one of the easiest questions you could have done. Chalo. Then quickly moving on. During the puja days, people visit those houses where puja is performed. They make it a point to go, even if they are not invited. Manmohan visited the house of Keshav, his office colleague, during puja days. Right? So what can be the conclusion? We cannot conclude whether he was invited from some other function or not. We cannot say that he was a religious man and hence he went, because nothing is there in the statement. And we do not know whether he was invited or not. But if a person visits during puja days, that means puja is being performed. So best possible option from the given ones has to be C. right? Almost everybody who has answered has given me the right answer. So this is definitely C. Now, a factory worker has 5 children. No one else in the factory has 5 children. If one of the factory workers has 5 children and no one else has 5 children, that means only he has 5 children. So definitely not the first one or the second one. We cannot say whether somebody has more than 5, but we can definitely say only one has exactly 5. So D has to be my answer. Simple. Yes, Manush. I know that. We are revising. That's why. See, all these examples at some point or the other you will come across, or you would have already come across. Right? I'm just taking the old examples to revise the concepts. Okay. Most of the politicians are liars. And Harish tells lies. Now, we do not know whether other non-politicians tell lie or not. So we can't assume that Harish is a politician. And we cannot say non-politicians do not lie. And there is no question of benefit. So the only reasonable conclusion is that some politicians do not tell lies. Quaish. Because it does not say all politicians are liars. It says most of the politicians are liars. If most of the politicians are liars, that means some of them do not lie. And because ABD cannot be my answer for sure, C is the only one which can be given. Yash, B क्यों नहीं? Those who do not tell lies are not politicians. किसने कहा कि नॉन पॉलिटिशियंस झूठ नहीं बोलते? और जो अगर झूठ नहीं बोलते तो पॉलिटिशियंस नहीं, ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? बिकॉज पॉलिटिशियन बोलने के लिए, इफ यू आर अ पॉलिटिशियन, इट डज नॉट मीन यू हैव टू लाई. All politicians don't lie. So politician could be not lying. यश, तो जरूरी नहीं कि B हो. Most of the politicians are liars, but that does not mean all the politicians are liars. It means there can be some politicians who do not lie. Right? Chal. All guilty politicians were arrested. Kishan and Chandar were among those arrested. I cannot say all politicians are guilty or all arrested people are politicians and Kishan and Chandar are not politicians. So the only reasonable conclusion definitely has to be D. The only reasonable conclusion definitely has to be D. So guys, conclusions are pretty much simple, easy to derive from the given statements. Correct? Now, moving on to the most common type of questions which have been asked in many of the exams, right? Assumptions, arguments, conclusions, they are definitely asked many times. But now, one popular type of question is passage-based questions. Here the same concepts of assumptions, arguments, conclusions work, but instead of a single line, a big passage is given. So here the theory is simple. First, don't read the passage. First, read the question which has been asked so that you know what you are looking for in the passage. Once you have read the question, then read the passage. And then once you have read the passage, go through all the options, because it is possible that more than one option may be correct, but you have to select the best possible answer. So just because the first or the second option that you read seems right does not mean usko mark karo baki ko padhe bina. Make sure you check each and every given option, then and only then you should mark. Don't be hasty and not read the options, right? You have to go through all the options, then and only then you should mark the answer. Chalo, let's take a look at the passage. The conclusion drawn by the physician follows logically if which one of the following is assumed, right? So first of all, there is some sort of conclusion in the passage, and from the options you have to select the assumption which makes the conclusion of the passage correct. What is the passage? Physician says in itself, exercise does not cause heart attacks. Rather, a sudden increase in an exercise regimen can be a cause. When people of any physical condition suddenly increase their amount of exercise, they also increase their risk of heart attack. As a result, there will be an increased risk of heart attack among employees of this company due to the new health program. So, what is the conclusion? The conclusion that these people are making is that the new health program will increase the risk of heart attack. Now, if the physician is saying that the new health program will increase their risk, and we also know that the risk is not because of exercise, the risk is because of sudden increase in the amount, then what could be the assumption? Right? If the new health program is increasing the risk, but risk is actually because of increase in the exercise, that means the new health program will make them suddenly increase their exercise regimen. So first assumption, employees will abruptly, suddenly increase the amount of exercise because of the new health program, possible. The exercise involved in the new health program more strenuous, harder. It is not about hard, it is in the increase in the quantity. So not this. The new health program will force employees of all levels to exercise regularly. No. It constitutes a sudden change in the company's policy. That is irrelevant. All employees will participate. No. This particular health program will cause a problem if the health program forces the employees to increase the exercise amount. So A definitely is my answer. A is definitely my answer. Do you get this one? Nilay, Harshit? A definitely has to be my answer in this particular case. Did you understand why? Yes, Aditya. Aditya says B can also be eliminated because we don't know if there was any health program previously. Correct. The previous health program, there is nothing which tells us that there was a previous health program. So B is eliminated on that basis also. Correct. Chalo, next one. The main point of the argument. What is the main point of this argument? Last month, OCF Incorporated announced what it described as a unique new product, an adjustable computer workstation. 3 days later, Ergotech unveiled an almost identical product. The two companies claim that the similarities are coincidental and occurred because the designers independently reached the same solution to the same problem. The similarities are too fundamental to be mere coincidence, however. The two products not only look alike, they also work alike. Both are oddly shaped with identically placed control panels with the same type of controls. Both allow the same type of adjustments and the same type of optional enhancements. So, what is the main point of this entire passage? The companies themselves are saying that our companies have reached the same solution to the same problem and hence they are similar. But what are they saying? They are showing too many similarities. So can I say that two products have many? Is the argument to show that they have many common characters? No. Can you say Ergotech must have copied the design? Just because Ergotech revealed the product later does not mean Ergotech must have copied the design. Why can't OCF have copied the design and then quickly released it before Ergotech? So I cannot say Ergotech must have copied the design. Now, obviously they are saying the similarities are not coincidental. Who has copied? I don't know. But somebody has copied. So the similarities are not coincidental. Could be my answer. Product designers sometimes reach the same solution to a given problem without consulting. No, they're actually saying that The similarities are too fundamental to be mere coincidence. They're saying it is not a coincidence. So they are against D. And new products that at first appear to be unique are sometimes simply variation of other products. No. They are actually saying that it is not a coincidence. So the best possible answer is definitely C. Who has copied? We don't know. But it is not coincidence. Definitely some copying is going on. So the best possible answer that you can go for in this particular case has to be option C. Hope everybody got this one. C definitely has to be my best possible option. Okay. Next. In the absence of the anthropologist's reply, which one of the following principles, if established, would most support the chemist's charge? Right? If the anthropologist's reply is not existing, then I have to support what the chemist is saying. Now, an anthropologist hypothesized that a certain medicinal power contained a significant amount of the deadly toxin T. When the test she performed for the presence of toxin T was negative, the anthropologist did not report the results. A chemist who nevertheless learned about the test results charged the anthropologist with fraud. The anthropologist, however, countered that the results were invalid because the power had inadvertently been tested in acidic solution. Now, if the last line is not there, right, that it has been tested in acid, if this line was not given, then what says that the anthropologist committed fraud? Basically, you have to go with an option which says that the anthropologist committed fraud. The chemist is saying the anthropologist committed fraud. You have to support that. Chalo. Reporting results for an experiment that was not conducted and reporting a false result for an actual experiment are both instances of scientific fraud. But the anthropologist has not reported anything. In fact, she did not report. Here A talks about reporting something. The anthropologist did not report. So A cannot be my answer. Scientists can commit fraud and yet report some disconfirmation of their hypothesis. But how has the scientist committed fraud? Right? B is not giving me the answer of how has the scientist committed fraud. Why is the chemist right in saying that the scientist has committed fraud? So B cannot be my answer. Scientists can neglect to report some disconfirmation of their hypothesis and yet be innocent of fraud. I have to support the chemist and prove that the scientist has committed fraud. C cannot be my answer. Scientists commit fraud whenever they report as valid any test result they know to be invalid. But here the anthropologist has not reported anything. So D cannot be my answer. Scientists who neglect to report any experiment that could be interpreted as disconfirming the hypothesis have thereby committed fraud. This is exactly what the scientist has done. The scientist has not reported the experiment which would have disproved the hypothesis. So E definitely is my answer. This is 100% sure. E has to be the answer. Urmi, did you understand that? Correct. Chalo. Next one. The same passage. Which one strengthens the anthropologist's counter argument? The anthropologist is saying that the results are invalid because it has been tested in acidic solution. You have to say this is a good explanation of the anthropologist. Now, if the anthropologist has evidence from the fieldwork that medicinal powder was typically prepared using toxin T, then ये acidic solution का पूरा क्या झमेला है? A does not answer that. Anthropologist बोल रहा है I did not report because I tested it in acid. A does not answer that question. The activity level of toxin T tends to decline if the powder is stored for a long time. But that is not the explanation given by the anthropologist. So B is not the answer. C says when it is put into an acidic solution, the toxin becomes undetectable. Correct. एसिड में गलती से डाल के अगर उसको डिटेक्ट ही नहीं कर सकते तो उस पर टेस्ट थोड़ी कर पाओगे. यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू टेस्ट इट इफ इट बिकम्स अनडिटेक्टेबल. तो सी पॉसिबली कैन बी माई आंसर. A fresh batch of powder for repeat analysis was available at the time of the test. This does not support the anthropologist and the acid explanation. And the type of analysis was insensitive to very blah blah blah. The only thing which supports why the anthropologist did not report the experiment is because the experiment was problematic. And definitely C has to be the answer in this case. Definitely C has to be the answer in this case. Chalo. Next one. Now, there's no question. So that means from the passage, read it and then which of the option answers follow. Naima says, the proposed new computer system, once we fully implemented it, would operate more smoothly and efficiently than the current system. So, we should devote the resources necessary to accomplish the conversion as soon as possible. Nakai says, we should keep the current system for as long as we can. The cost in time and money of converting to the new system would be greater than any predicted benefits. So, Naima is saying we should convert to the new system. Nakai is saying we should keep the old system. What from the options can be my answer? If Nakai is true, the predicted benefit of the new computer system will be realized. That does not take into account Nakai's argument. It is essential to have the best computer system, correct, but that does not support either Nakai or Naima's arguments. Accomplishing the conversion is technically impossible. Nowhere they say it is impossible. The current system does not work well enough to do what it is supposed to do. Nakai is not saying that. The conversion to a new computer system should be delayed. Yes, if Nakai is correct, right, then the correct option to do is delayed. We cannot prevent it, but definitely it should be delayed as much as possible. So the only good answer here can be E. Did everybody get that? I hope everybody got this one right. Maitri, they have skipped that question, right? It's not mentioned we have to support Nakai. But if both of them are true, then what will be the answer? See, after the implementation, the new system will be good. But the process of implementing it itself is going to be expensive, right? We don't have to support Nakai. Consider both their statements. Naima is saying the new system is good after implementation. But Nakai says, after implementation jo bhi ho, but during implementation itself there will be problems. So keeping both of them in mind, what should be my thing? Shubhankar, did you get it? After implementation, it is definitely good. But Nakai is pointing out that during the implementation itself there will be a problem. So although we cannot prevent it, we have to delay it as much as possible. So it's not one or the other. Considering both the arguments, the best possible solution is this. Shubhankar, I hope you got that. Right. So guys, now we are moving on to something very, very simple. Right? This is something which is a part of reasoning. Sometimes this question is also asked in the English section, right? So this is known as analogies. Analogy is comparison. So in analogies, a comparison is given between two objects. You have to identify what is the relationship between them. Then from the given options, you have to select the one which holds the same relationship as the given comparison, right? So it's a question of both vocabulary, First of all, knowing what the words are. Second, sometimes a little bit of GK, understanding the words and the relation. And finally, picking up the right answer. For example, boy is to girl. The same relation man is to. If boy is to girl, then for that analogy, man is to woman. Correct. Dog is to puppy. Cow is to what? So what is the relationship? To understand it, form a sentence. The young one of a dog is called a puppy. So in the same sentence, young one of a cow is called a calf. So using the first two words, prepare a sentence which connects them. And using the same sentence, you will get the answer of the second half. So the opposite of hot is cold. So the opposite of up is down. Simple. JPG is a format of a picture. A computer stores JPEG as the format of a picture. So a computer stores MP3 as the format of either, see, music, Paranika, is very kind. But even my speech right now, whatever I'm saying can be recorded as MP3. But it is not music. So JPEG stores pictures, MP3 stores audio or sound. Of course, audio is the best one, right? So JPEG is used for storing pictures. MP3 is used for storing audio. The capital of India is New Delhi. Then the capital of USA is Washington DC, right? So if you are able to identify the relationship which connects the first two words, then from the options you simply have to pick up the option which connects the words in the same sense. Let's take a look at examples with options. So palate is to mouth. Palate is to mouth. Then from the options, so if you don't know what a palate is, then you can't answer this. So this type of question requires you to have a lot of word knowledge. Vocabulary is important. So the upper portion, the roof of the mouth, is called the palate. So if the palate is the upper portion of the mouth, then what is the upper portion of what? Is rainbow upper portion of sky, rivulet upper portion of dam, hill the upper portion of a range, or ceiling the upper portion of room? Obviously the answer is D. Just like palate is the roof of the mouth, ceiling is the roof of the room. Correct? Rivulet is a small river. Number. River ka chota rivulet. Nadi, jharna. A rivulet is a small river. Chalo. Winter is to summer. Cold is to. Chala, this is Papu, this is Papu, this is Papu. Winter is to summer. Cold is to hot. Simple. They are simply antonyms. Right? Winter and summer antonyms. So cold and hot. Winter is cold. Summer is hot. Spelling is to punctuation. Biology is to what? So, how are spelling and punctuation connected? Spelling and punctuation, how are they connected? Spelling and punctuation are both parts of English. Spelling and punctuation are both parts of English. So biology and dash are both parts of dash. So biology, or spelling and punctuation both are part of a language basically. So biology and chemistry are both parts of science. So spelling is to punctuation as biology as to chemistry. Both are studies of a second common subject. Spelling and punctuation are both common to languages. Biology and chemistry both are common to science. Dissection is a part of biology, but punctuation is not a part of spelling. Yash. Dissection is done as a part of biology, but punctuation is not done as a part of spelling. So C cannot be my answer. Do you get that? So like I said, whenever you want to check an option, make a sentence which logically connects them and see whether the same sentence works for the given question. Like grain is to silo. Now if you know what a silo is, you will be able to answer this. So like I said, vocabulary is very, very important when it comes to questions of analogies. If I tell you what a silo is, you will be able to answer this question. So a silo is a big building in which you store grains. A silo is a big building in which you store grains. So grain is stored in silo. What is stored in what? So obviously water is stored in a reservoir. Reservoir is dam के पीछे जो होता है जहाँ पे पानी store होता है. So just like grain is stored in silo, water is stored in reservoir. Right? Get that? Did everybody get this one? Chalo. Yes. Okay. Rein is to horse. Control panel is to what? घोड़े का जो लगाम होता है, that is called reins. A rein is used to control a horse. So control panel is used to control what? If a rein is used to control or guide a horse, then a control panel is used to control or guide a plane. That's it. Just like rein is used to control a horse, a control panel is used to control a plane. Argentina is to Brazil as dash is to Iran. So यहाँ पे geography is important. General knowledge of geography is important. Argentina and Brazil both are countries in South America. Argentina and Brazil both are neighboring countries. So which two countries are neighboring? That is along with Iran, or Iran is in Middle East. Which other countries also in the Middle East? Obviously Iraq, or as the Americans would say, Iraq. So just like Argentina and Brazil both are neighbors in South America, similarly Iraq and Iran both neighbors in the Middle East. Okay. Dash play, sing anthem. You sing an anthem is sung by the people. So a play is what? Why, Shrikar? Sing anthem dash play. So you sing an anthem, you act a play. Did you get that? You sing an anthem, you act a play. You act in a play, you sing an anthem. You act in a play, you sing an anthem. A scene is part of a play. Right? Sing is what you do with an anthem. You don't do a scene with a play, you act a play. So scene cannot be the answer, Jaishil. Right? People sing an anthem. So people act a play. People don't scene a play. The sentence has to be like that. Don't worry, Shrikar. चेहरा दिखाऊंगा. Not now. Not now. अभी तो बहुत टाइम है अपने पास. Don't worry. Okay. Mouse is to dash as flash is to camera. Mouse is to dash as flash is to camera. So flash is a part of a camera, right? A flash is a part of a camera. So mouse is part of what? Obviously not chuha, but that computer wala mouse. So if a flash is part of a camera, then a mouse is part of a computer. One is part of the whole. Okay. Cushion is to sofa as shelf is to what? So cushion is part of a sofa. A cushion is part of a sofa. So a shelf will be part of what? A ledge is like a shelf. Ledge is similar to a shelf, right? But cushion is part of a sofa. So shelf is part of a bookcase. Got that? Kavya, Shaurya, Harshi. A sofa is a cushion is part of a sofa. Similarly, a shelf is part of a bookcase. Scrub and wash. Sob is to, what is a bookcase? Bookcase, bookshelf. Book जहाँ लाइब्रेरी में बड़े बड़े रैक्स नहीं होते बुक के, दैट इज अ bookcase. So scrub means to wash heavily. To scrub means to wash with lot of energy. So sob means what? ध्रुसके रोना. Cry is थोड़ा बहुत रोना. बहुत सारा रोना is to sob. So scrub is an extreme form of wash. Sob is an extreme form of cry. Scrub is an extreme form of wash. Sob is an extreme form of cry. Moisten dash, cool, freeze. Moisten is to dash, cool is to freeze. Again, cool ठंडा करना, freeze एकदम ठंडा कर देना. Moisten थोड़ा बहुत गीला करना, तो एकदम गीला कर देना is to soak. Right? The first one is the soft form, the second one is the extreme form. You cool something too much, you freeze it. You moisten something too much, you soak it. Persimmon is to dash as cottontail is to rabbit. So persimmon is actually a type of fruit. Persimmon is a type of fruit. And cottontail is a type of rabbit. Unless you know this, persimmon is a type of fruit. So technically it's a type of berry. And a cottontail is a type variety of rabbit. So one is a type of two. Like Alsatian is a type of dog. Persian is a type of cat. Siamese is a type of cat. Doberman is a type of dog. Like varieties. Similarly, persimmon is a type of berry, fruit. And cottontail is a type of rabbit. Stars is to astronomy as dash is to history. The study of stars is called astronomy. Yet studying stars is a part of astronomy. Studying stars is a part of astronomy. So studying what is a part of history, right? If studying stars is a part of astronomy, then obviously studying battles is a part of history. Studying battles is a part of history. Dash is to unity as dearth is to scarcity. Dearth यानी किसी चीज की कमी होना. Scarcity also means किसी चीज की कमी होना. They are synonyms. So if dearth means scarcity, then what means unity? Unity means चीजों का एक होना. Cohesion also means चीजों का चिपकना या एक होना. So cohesion, when things stick, they come together. That is unity. Maitri, how is belief synonymous with unity? Belief has nothing to do with unity. Unity is ekta. Belief is you believe in something. So belief cannot be a synonym. No, Aditya. Adhesion and cohesion, they actually both means to stick. Adhesion, adhesive. Adhesive is also used, is a word. Fevicol is an adhesive. तो adhesive भी तो चिपकाता है. Adhesion and cohesion both mean the same. Scientifically they are different. One is between two same objects and between different objects, but both are similar. Aditya, adhesion is not the antonym. Cohesive means together. Adhesive means to stick together. They are actually similar in meaning. Adhesive. No, Maitri. No, when people believe they unite. No. So people who believe in the same thing, they unite. But people who, so Darth is the same thing to scarcity? No. Darth and scarcity are same meaning. So cohesion and unity, they have the same meaning. You have to use them in the same sentence. The two parts, left and right. Okay. Aesop was famous for writing fables. Aesop's fables, very famous, right? So Aesop was famous for writing fables. Then Homer was famous for what? If Aesop was famous for writing fables, Homer was famous for writing epics. Epics like Iliad and Odyssey. Great epics like Iliad and Odyssey were all written by Homer. Paradise Lost, Paradise Gained, very famous works of Homer. Okay. A turncoat means traitor. Gaddar. A turncoat means traitor. So what means rogue? So today, even if you don't know the meaning, you learn a new word. The word scamp is used to mean a person who is not well behaved, right? So a scamp is a rogue, a person who is not well behaved. Synonyms: just like a turncoat is a traitor, a scamp is a rogue, a person who is not well behaved. To ponder means to think. To ponder means to think. Synonyms: so to hanker means to what? Hanker means किसी चीज की तलब होना. After seeing a lot of food shows, now I'm hankering to eat some burgers. Right? किसी चीज की suddenly तुमको तलब मचती है. You desire it a lot. You're hankering for it. So to hanker for something is to yearn for something. Right? You deeply desire something. That is a hankering or a yearning. When you deeply desire something, that is to hanker or to yearn for something. Rook, pyada. Rook is a pyada. Is Rook a pyada or is it the elephant? I keep forgetting. Rook is not the pawn. Rook is the elephant, right? I keep forgetting Rook. But I know Rook is the chess piece. इतना मुझे पता है Rook is a chess piece. So if Rook is one of the pieces used in chess, then what is used in badminton? If Rook is one of the chess pieces, then what is in badminton? Obviously, shuttlecock. And I think now with the movie Saina coming up, in which they have wrongly showed holding a shuttlecock, then because of the movie, now we all know, right? Shuttlecock is a part of badminton. Shuttlecock is used to play badminton. Bowler is to dash, as satchel is to bag. Satchel is a type of bag. Satchel is a type of bag. Bowler is a type of what? This is a bowler. A bowler looks something like this. So a bowler is a type of hat. Bowler hats, they are known as. In UK, England, old Englishmen, they used to wear this bowler hats, right? So a bowler is actually a type of hat, just like a satchel is a type of bag. Basta जिसको बोलते हैं. A satchel is a type of bag. A bowler is a type of hat. Do you know what an ottoman is? Yes, Aditya, the one Watson wears in Sherlock Holmes. Yes. No, Soham, cowboys, they don't wear bowler hats. They wear Stetsons. The hat worn by cowboys, they are called Stetson or Gallon hats. Bowler hats are typically worn by the Britishers, especially if you have seen Sherlock Holmes. His partner, Dr. Watson, he wears a bowler hat. The hat worn by Sherlock Holmes is called a deerstalker. An ottoman is a sofa. More specifically, it's a part of a sofa. Correct. A cushion where you put up your feet. Yes. Vanshika, correct. Sofa ke aage, it's like a stool, but cushioned, where you can put your feet up. So ottoman is like a cushioned stool where you can rest your feet. Basically a sofa without arms. Okay, right. Chalo. Yes, Sanskriti. Ottoman Empire also was there. The ancient Turkish in Turkey, that was also called the Ottoman Empire. But Ottoman Empire could be Ottoman, could be the Ottoman. What we call an Ottoman could be a furniture which came from the Ottoman Empire. So it's quite possible. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. Anyway, dash wood file nail. So नाखून को जो घिसते हैं, that is filing your nail. You use a file to trim your nails. So with a file you trim the nail. So with dash you trim wood. What do you use to file is not used to cut. It is used to smoothen the nails. A saw is used to cut, but a plane is used to smooth wood. Right? जो घिस के after the wood is cut, they often use, I don't know whether you have seen this, I'll show you what a plane looks like. It looks something like this, right? ऐसा ब्लॉक होता है और बीच में यहाँ पे एक ब्लेड जैसा होता है, एंड इसको ऐसे एक हैंडल जैसा होता है, एंड they use it to घिसोफy wood so that it becomes smooth. Not sandpaper. So it's not sandpaper, it's called a plane. It's actually used to smoothen wood. रफली इसको स्मूथ करते हैं एंड फिर सैंड पेपर से उसको बारीकी से स्मूथ करते हैं. बट प्लेन इज एक्चुअली अ डिवाइस विच इज यूज्ड टू बेसिकली स्मूथ वुड. इट्स यूज्ड फॉर शेपिंग एंड स्मूथिंग वुड. यस, सो दैट्स अ प्लेन. प्रत्युष, यू आर एग्जैक्टली राइट. बर्फ गोला मशीन जो आप बोल रहे हो, एग्जैक्टली दैट. बर्फ गोला से जो घिसते हैं, it's used for shaving ice. That's a brilliant comparison. That is called a plane. When it is used on wood, it is called a plane. You are exactly right. Baraf gola machine. Yeah. Chalo. So guys, I think that is most of the questions that I had for the day. So I'm going to send across a PDF containing different types of questions, mostly paragraph based, and of course others by end of day, so you can solve. The answer key will be given along with that. It's just a practice exercise. If there are any doubts, you can hang around, else we are done for the day. If you have any doubts, you can hang around, else we are done for the day. You may exit the session. Stay home and stay safe.